Hello and welcome back to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets. I'm your host, Mitchell, here to go over our 10-game Tuesday slate. I'm changing up the room kind of every time, changing up the jerseys every time. I also brought back the California Golden Seals hat. So you're really missing out by not watching this live if you're listening to this on a podcast. If you're watching it live, I hope you enjoy the new stuff. But with the Blacklight Modest Mouse poster, and we are blacklight mode. So it is what it is, but it's a cool, very large poster that I have. And we're going to move right into the slate, though. I'm not going to take up too much time because we have 10 games and I'm notoriously going too long on all of these. So I'm going to just get right into it. Rate, review, subscribe. I don't know. You know what to do. If you haven't done it yet, you probably aren't going to do it. So we're going to get right into it with Winnipeg at the New York Rangers. A good one, a game that I really like a lot for different betting reasons. Number one is I think this game is trending pretty strongly towards the under. I think it's a pretty good under 6 bet. On top of the fact that the Rangers have only allowed 6 goals in their last 6 games, 4 of them coming in one game against Carolina. And I know the competition's been weak there. If you look at the opponents, you'll see, some bad teams, but they've only allowed 6 goals in 6 games. And versus anyone that's impressive, they're playing Winnipeg, who has been just getting torched. And on top of being really bad, and again, you could look at Winnipeg's recent schedule and say, well, they played some tougher teams. They've not only played really bad, they're also losing another key piece to their lineup. Not for sure, but they're almost definitely not going to have Pierre-Luc Dubois, which kind of just takes them out of consideration in all aspects for me. I can't see a scenario where PLD ends up getting the nod here to play. Scheifele's already out. So yeah, it's tough sledding ahead. I don't really have a lot of interest in this game from many prop perspectives. I'm really going to be struggling to find the right one. I'm trying to find exactly what the coach said about Pierre-Luc Dubois because DraftKings doesn't have anything listed for him. So I'm like, maybe he could play, I guess, but I don't think he's going to, which meant that they had really one line that they're running and the rest are garbage. I know it was Stastny with Connor and Ehlers, which is, a good line, but is it going to get it done against a Rangers team that is not only have great goaltending and Georgiev that's kind of trending in the right direction, but it also has probably the best defensive team, in the league right now. It's really, really impressive on all counts. So I just don't have any interest in Winnipeg. And the Rangers, while you might be saying, are the much better team, they played really well. They've really brought themselves back into a chance to win the Metro. I think they're tied right now as of recording, although Carolina should probably take care of Arizona on Monday. But they've really clawed themselves back into a chance here. But even with that, and even with them playing Winnipeg, who is very bad defensively, it really doesn't set up as a high scoring game from the Rangers either. I have this as not the lowest total of the entire night right now, but it is. No, it is the lowest total. It's close. It's between there's like 2 or 3. Anyway, so it's below a 5, and we have it at under 6. So that's really all I need to take here. I might even include this with some of my props. That's something I kind of guilty of saying I'm going to do and not doing is taking the lines that I like the most if I don't like a prop as much, and if I like a prop a lot more. I don't know why I get in the mentality of just these are player props and these are the money lines. You do not have to do that. You can't take a prop in the game. You take a money line or an over-under in, but you can take it with another game's props. So in most states, I'm not sure about every state. So just trying to get out of that heuristic, I'm going to try to myself, and I'm going to promise you that I will when I post them on Tuesday. Not a whole lot here to love as far as shots are concerned. I already said that. The Rangers, I don't trust anyone. And I'm just really hard pressed to want to bet Ehlers over 3.5 against the Rangers. So I'm just going to fade them for shots. I think that there could be maybe a meat on the bone as far as Rangers points. I've been kind of liking Fox's prop more than anyone. He just seems to be more involved offensively than like a lot of forwards when he's out there, but we'll move forward. I'm already going too long. As I mentioned, I'm guilty of. The next game is a tough one. The Tampa Bay Lightning are not only minus 550 favorites here at home, but it's minus 190 for the puck line. Now, I looked at this one early and was a little bit surprised, so I tried to pull up the news, and lo and behold, Dylan Larkin is not going to play again for the rest of the season. That is, taking a bad situation and making it quite a bit worse for a team that's terrible. And, there's not a lot to like here. And I know I talked about it in the past that, Larkin's not been fantastic defensively, but he's really, such a good player in general that it doesn't matter that much. he's just so talented that he doesn't always have to play that much defense. But when he gets hammered in his own zone, he might be a bad time for him. But that line has been the only thing they have going for them. So this is a terrible Detroit team. It's a Detroit team that I, frankly have not trusted at all in any capacity all season. So I'm certainly not going to trust them here. This does profile to have a decent amount of shots in Tampa's favor. They should be able to outshoot Detroit, but this isn't a Tampa team that historically shoots too much. Well, historically this season, over the course of this year, they just haven't been shooting as much as you may have liked. So I'm more interested in player props on Tampa really exclusively here and nothing else, because I'm just not going to bet a massively juiced line like this. There's just no reason. I know Tampa has a little bit to play for, but whatever. Just kind of pulling up as I try to do some random, some stuff I don't always tell you on the podcast. One thing I always try, well, not every time, but most slates I try to pull up is just over the last 10, who is having the most shot attempts on the power play. And of the entire, everyone in the entire league, Steven Stamkos is third in iCourse 4 per 60 on just the power play. And he's getting he has 30 minutes of run here compared to a couple of guys that have a little bit less because of injuries and just opportunity. So he really is, he's third on of everyone in the league right now over the past 10. Norris, Pacioretty, Stamkos, which is kind of boost him a little bit more in the point, to get a point, in my opinion. And you might consider him for a power play point, because if he's shooting, that means that, the teams probably know that he's shooting more and he might pass one off. And B is just shooting is generally leading to goals and going to boost his expected goals at a much higher rate. So I do like him as a point guy. He doesn't correlate well with many pieces. They, start sticking with Kucherov, Point, and Paul, and kind of moving Stamkos around. That can sometimes be a little bit, what's the right word I'm looking for here? It can be a little bit misguided or misleading is probably the right word, because they will correlate all these guys anyways at 5-on-5. But I'm overall not super interested here in, getting crazy and betting multi-point props too much, just because I don't really think that Tampa's going to play the same course as they would versus a better opponent, meaning that I don't think Kucherov's going to see over 20 minutes of ice time. I think that he's going to see far less. So you're really hoping they kind of pile it on early. Against Winnipeg, once they got up, they kind of called off the dogs. They were down early and they pulled it back. And yeah, so I just think I'm going to stick with what I know. And what I know is that I really like Stamkos here. I like Tampa in general, but I'm just not going to bet it. And there's really not one individual point prop I think is infinitely better, but I think Stamkos to get a point is going to be a safer play, better option. In DFS, I don't think I'm fading Tampa, but I'm not overly bullish on them. I'm going to talk about this on the Morning Skate podcast, so I'm not going to do a ton of DFS deep dive here. Our next game is the Flyers at Toronto, another absolutely massive chalk spot for Toronto, minus 475, minus 180 on the puck line, over under 7. I'm just not someone that likes to bet these kind of overs on teams that I don't trust to score. And as I probably said for the, I've done 150 podcasts at this point this year, Toronto's just better defensively than people give them credit for. I had this game right around a 5.5 as expected goals, which means that if it was a 5.5, I'd definitely bet the over on 5.5. If it was a 6, I think you're kind of liking the 6. I think you're just fine with it. 6.5, that's where you start to think, boy, you're really hoping that the goaltenders suck. And 7, you're like, I like the under. And I don't think I'm going to bet the under because I have absolutely no faith in either side of this goaltending. We, haven't seen Carter Hart in a little while. Doesn't seem like it's a long-term thing. I haven't seen anything to indicate that he's out long-term. Campbell seems fine. I don't know if they're going to go to him here or Calgren. It's either or seems okay. So I don't know if you have to go too overboard on this game and try to talk yourself into an over. That being said, I do think there's going to be some props that I'm going to be in on, especially if Matthews is out again. We don't know. All I could find is the coach saying basically that it's not that serious, and that was it. Not much more or less. He just kind of said, it's late in the season. And, it kind of sounded like they didn't want to admit that they kept him out for the fact that the season's almost over. It was maybe he could have played through it, but they also wanted to make it known that he's not going to be out for a long time. So yeah, it's a game that I think Matthews will probably play in. I don't think you keep him out for too many. Just not what you want to do, especially because in Toronto, if you keep Matthews out, then you lose in the first round of the playoffs. People are going to be like, oh, he wasn't ready. But back to the what we're getting to here. I love Nylander again. I loved his shot prop. It's one of my favorite bets last time Toronto played. I'm still in on it. I love Tavares to get a point again. That one just seems to be a little bit mispriced as well. Especially if Matthews is out. I kind of jammed it. I jammed Nylander to score. I still think those guys are pretty good, and I think that there's no reason not to bet him here. If Matthews is in, I'm going to still probably bet it. Nylander to have a point. He's been red hot. I see no reason to get off of it. So we can move off this game. I don't have a lot of interest in the Flyers. They got bullied by the Sabres on back-to-back nights. That doesn't, give me a lot of confidence. There's some decent pieces here that, I guess, just candidly, I think are going to get there at some point. And this isn't the slate I'm going to bet it on. So we'll move forward. And if I see anything on the Flyers I really like, maybe I'll let you know, but I don't really think I have a lot of faith in this Flyers team scoring a lot of goals. Our next game is the Wild at Montreal. We're finally getting to a little bit less absolutely massive chalk. It's minus 275 for Minnesota, minus 115 on the puck line. This is a not very good Habs team. I don't, obviously think that this Habs team is going to beat Minnesota, but I don't think it's a bet that I really want to place here. They are losing Marcus Foligno to COVID, which he's, I guess, I assume vaccinated. Didn't say specifically, but they're like, he could be back in 5 days. And that's not always the case. I don't know the rules anymore, but I do think that that's a very minor, ding to them because, he's a good defensive forward. Don't get me wrong, but that's not really what you're worried about. I think too much with Montreal. I don't think Montreal is going to have a lot of success scoring on this Minnesota team. They have a very, very good shutdown line with Eric Sinek. I actually have them as the lowest expected goal total on the entire slate in Montreal, and for good reason. I just don't think they're very good, and maybe better than they played, but. So for that reason, I think if you're, get a Galaxy brain, anything here, under 1.5 goals for Montreal is probably what I'm going to have. If you want to go for the shutout, you're really betting on Minnesota goaltending being comparable, and they just haven't been really on either goalie. But I would say I'm more concerned about Fleury right now than I am anyone else. Point again, I did have it, and I'll probably go back to it. Totally fine, but nothing really on Montreal that stands out. Like I said, I don't expect them to score much. I don't expect them to have a ton of shots on goal. I kind of just going to fade them all around. So we'll move to the next game that I have a lot more interest in. I love Florida in regulation here against the Islanders. I'm going to, get mad and, Islanders fans, so some of you mad at me, but, this Islanders team, they played well against Toronto. I know they lost 4-2, but they, again, had 2 expected goals and they scored 2 and they, almost had 3, but they're not very good. They're not getting a ton of, volume in their chances, but they're burying on the ones that they get chances of. It's just not a very good team. They're not playing exceptionally well defensively, and Sorokin's bailing them out at times. I do think Sorokin is a very, very, very good goalie, and if he goes in this one, I think that makes a little bit of something of the under. It kind of makes it move a little bit, but I do have this one as a higher expected goals game. It's really probably the highest expected on the slate, so I good faith, I probably can't bet that under and feel any sort of, I can't feel great about it. Sorokin did give up 4 last time out to Pittsburgh. So, he's human too. So, I'm just not going to bet either side of this over under. I know my math is saying to bet the over. So if you want to go with it, go with it. I might take a look tomorrow again, but I'm going to bet Panthers in regulation here. I don't have a line for it right now. I'm trying to see if maybe that has changed, but I think it's probably going to be right around minus 130, 140 when you get it. Let's see if I can find it. Minus 130. There it is. So minus 130 for the Panthers in regulation. I like that a lot. I know they've gone to overtime a decent amount, but I'm not really that worried about it here. I just don't think they're going to have a slow start. Although the Panthers have kind of clinched the 1 seed and it's pretty much a done deal. I just, I'm not going to let that get too into my head here when I really, really like the Panthers on the slate. I also like them in DFS. It's been tough to nail down the right DFS look for the Panthers. We had Giroux, Huberdeau, Bennett, and you have Giroux, Huberdeau on the power play, no Bennett. You have Barkov, Verhaeghe, Duclair. You have Barkov and Duclair, but no Verhaeghe. I've been pretty high on the Duclair train. He scored again for me, so can't really complain too much on him. He's been really good, but it's hard to get that, a really good, warm, fuzzy feeling about your lineup. I think that, Lindell, Reinhart, Marchment are always a bit of a sneaky stack, especially on a huge slate, but is there really enough, upside in that stack to feel good about it on a 10 gamer? You're really praying that they get 3-point night. in a matchup that they should do well in, but are they going to? It's always tough. So Florida minus 130 in regulation is my favorite thing here. And I like the over okay, but like I said, I'm probably not betting it. I just have a little bit too much respect for Sorokin, and I don't have a lot of respect for the Islanders to put up an egregious amount of goals, no matter who's in net. And I know Florida's been a little shaky, but last time out, Spencer Knight really good. I think it'll be back to Bobrovsky here. As Spencer Knight turns 21, I believe, like while I'm recording. I think it's actually on the 18th of April. So yeah, he's 21. Crazy, right? But we can move forward. Prop wise, we don't look at the Panthers. I'm not sure if there's anything right now that's blowing the doors off as far as shots are concerned. But Giroux to get a point, Reinhart to get a point, Bennett to get a point is okay still, even though he's not on that top power play. And Duclair to get a point because he is on that top power play feels pretty good. He's been real hot as of late. So we'll move over to Calgary on a back-to-back at Nashville. Now, Nashville just got absolutely pumped against St. Louis, where they, I don't think there's really, oh my God, I'm gonna sneeze, but there's really not a lot you can take from this game other than Rittich was terrible. And then Saros came in cold and, well, he gave up 4 as well. So not a good outing in any capacity. I'm kind of, I think maybe a little bit lower on this Nashville team than most. They've kind of been riding hot goaltending and a lot of goals above expected to this point. It caught up to them, but they're playing a back-to-back Calgary team. So yeah, I think the under is in play here. If anything, Saros gets to start, they get back on track. They play a little bit more sound defensively. I don't think they're a bad defensive team by many metrics, but they're just not fantastic either. So yeah, I think this is probably one of those games that I just sort of say, I'm probably off of. I don't mind going over to Forsberg again for shots. He's also shooting a lot in the power play. I think that him with Granlund and Duchesne, if they keep it, which they might not because they got crushed, but if they do, I think that kind of gives him a little bit, him, I believe it was Johansson too. Like he still is shooting a lot. Over 2.5 feels good. I think given the matchup, they might not quite price it correctly. And he shot in the last game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 shot attempts, and only 3 of them weren't on goal. So that makes 8. 8 on goal, pretty good. I think he should be shooting a bit more, and I think he will here against a back-to-back team. At home, they can get a little bit more favorable matchups, which is always your concern against Calgary, is that line one dominates possession. So they'll do their best to probably get him a little bit of wiggle room. I don't have this game as a very high scoring one. I think it should be low scoring, as I'm already mentioning, but I do think it should be decently close. We'll look at Calgary tomorrow, see what they shake out to be. Mangiapane was a power play, should be going into the game on Monday with Hanifin as well. So I looked at Mangiapane's point against a very bad team, and who did they play? Let's scroll up. Chicago. And I might look back into it again here if why not against Nashville if it's like right around even money. He's on the first power play, and that's real good. So we'll move over to Boston at St. Louis. Yeah, I mean, Tarasenko should be the cover boy. At least I asked for him. If he is or isn't, doesn't matter. He's my cover boy, number 1 star of the week in the NHL. I bet his point prop and really his line mates as well, like every night, and just keeps hitting. I just keep going back to it. I mean, versus Nashville, they had 2.8 expected goals, and I said they scored 8. That isn't going to happen every night. Tarasenko isn't going to, have 3 points every single night, but lately he's been doing that. So it's against Boston, and it's at home. I'm hoping there's a lot of concern against Boston, and maybe they price it incorrectly again. And I'll go back to it because I think this line is supremely talented. I think St. Louis is going to do their best to get the O'Reilly line out there against the Bergeron line, and I think that. Boston on the road without dictating matchups will try to get the Bergeron line out there as much against the Thomas line. So we're going to see a lot of different correlations, but I'm really not afraid of it too much. Like Bergeron is the best defensive forward in the game, but I don't think on the road they're going to be able to get enough on the Thomas line. You could go, Galaxy brain here and just go with the Kyrou line, Shen, Kyrou, and Barbashev, and maybe consider a Kyrou point prop because he should get away from everyone, just as I just kind of stated, the way at least I think the game's going to play out. But he's on the first power play, but they kind of run 2 units pretty tangentially, and he's on the unit with Thomas, Tarasenko, Busnet. So yeah, maybe you consider that the first unit. So yeah, I feel pretty good about St. Louis here in general. The Bruins haven't been playing fantastic, and really outside of the Bergeron line, they're not great right now until Pasta and others get back, and they're just simply not back. So they didn't travel. So I think I'm fine with minus 135 on the Blues, but it's not my favorite bet by any capacity. I think there's better to be found, but it's totally fine. I think I might end up getting in on it, but I think there's enough like point props that I like that are going to be right around there that I just would rather take. As I'm saying, like, what's my favorite bet in this game? It's probably not the minus 135. I think it's fine though. We'll move forward to Ottawa at Vancouver. Both of these teams will be on a back-to-back going into Tuesday's, games. For that reason, I generally, late in the year like this, I don't really take a lot of stock in betting it over. We might see a bad goaltending matchup. Like, it should probably be like Halak versus, I don't even know, Holberg or whatever, Hedberg, Holberg. So it's hard for me to wait under here, but don't have a lot of interest in the Vancouver side. They do get Besser back. They have bet going out. They should probably be the better team here, but both on a back-to-back, I don't know. I really think you're playing with variance. And I think if you're playing with that much variance and that bad of goaltending on both sides, probably just go with the team that's plus 200. It's not a great bet. I don't think it's probably going to win every night, but this is a situation where I kind of look at the math and say, well, these teams are really rating out to be pretty freaking even. The under looks pretty good, but the goaltending's bad. So I'd rather just go with the plus 200 because I think it's, I think this game is kind of a toss-up, and just to be frank, and I would rather go with plus 200 every day. Maybe you want to get safe with it and say, 1.5 on Ottawa, minus 125. That's fine too. They don't lose by 2 goals. Seems fair to me. So I think that's also fine. And I'm definitely going to be right back to Brian Norris as far as points are concerned. You might be wondering, you talked about Stamkos being number 3 in the entire league and over the past 10 and Corsi 4 per 60. Number 1 on the power play. Number 1 is Josh Norris. So who's shooting more than Josh Norris on the power play? Be no one over the past 10. I love him here. It's hard to bet his goal prop because it's like even money, but I would be more than fine with just feeling safe about him or Brady for a point and moving on. I feel fine with Vancouver guys too. They're just not really priced the way I'd like them to be. We'll see what they are here. But Pedersen, it was like minus like 220 against Dallas. That doesn't feel like fun at all. And I think versus Ottawa, it makes a little more sense, but let's see what the line should be exactly. We'll see if any tweaks come in and we'll try to find the best line. And if it's, a guy that plays with him at power play and 5-on-5 because Horvat's out, we'll know that before this game. And we'll probably bet that person at like minus 140 instead of taking all the juice. So I got to wait and see on that one. And we'll move to the next game, LA at Anaheim. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be taking the over here. I have this expected goals over 6 and it's 5.5. So it feels really easy to me. One of my favorite bets of the night, include it right in with the Florida in regulation. I think that Anaheim can score goals. That's really why I like this one. I know LA can score goals and I know they can give up goals. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist here to think that Anaheim will give 4 to Columbus, could give up 4 again to LA, who rates much better than Columbus did. That's for sure. So I'm in on it. Getzlaf, Terry, and Henrique are just a really, really good line in general. I do feel bad for my boy Trevor Zegras with Grant and Mayhew. Zegras saw 12 minutes of ice time in that game against Columbus, and that line got beat up at 5-on-5. So tough scenes for them. Maybe they'll make a change because, well, they should. I'd love to see Zegras back with Milano again, who's just a much better line mate. But overall, I think that, Getzlaf, Terry, and Henrique are where my bets are going to come from. I was a bit higher on Henrique. I don't know if I think he got 1 point in that game over Getzlaf. And I like Terry to score. I bet him to score. So it worked out. But I just think that line is supremely talented. So anyway you want to go with it, I'm totally okay with. And then on the LA side, I mean, Kempe is legitimate smash at over 2.5. I just keep betting it. It keeps hitting. He's averaging over 6 shot attempts per game, closer to 6.5. I mean, this is like Marchand level. Him and Neil. So like for shot props, I'll just, there's only one game left. I'll wait, but he's one of the top absolute values for sure. I'm not sure if you have to go too crazy with these shot props. You can look for the game logs if you'd like, and you're probably going to see Arvidsson pop up. If he's at 2.5, that's fine as well, because I think there should be shots to go around here. There's trying to pull up their lines from their last game. They also played Columbus last, so pretty even Stevens. They won 2-1. They played, pretty well. Kopitar, Athanasiou returned to the lineup, and Kempe. And really, that's another reason why I like Kempe. Like, Athanasiou is a fine shooter, but not the best rate shooter in the league. Kopitar is historically not a rate shooter ever. This year's been a little bit better, but it's not what they want to do either. They want Kempe with the puck. So yeah, that feels real good. Kempe on the top power play, Durzi with it, but not quite getting the minutes he was at one time. So yeah, I think that this LA team should find more goals than they did last time out. And I think that this game over is one of my favorite bets of the night. Absolutely. So we'll move to the final game and I'll get you out of here before I take up all of your time. And it's Columbus on, well, like I just said, they just played LA, they played Anaheim, now they're playing San Jose. The Sharks, so many road games in a row. This is a Sharks team that played, I would say, real well against Minnesota. I watched a lot of that game. We saw an NHL debut for Bertolo, who was from Michigan. Spelled with like an Leau at the end, Bordello. He didn't play on the first power play or anything like that. They actually had the first power play with Burns, Dahlin, Hurdle, and Mayer. I'm not sure what was up with that. If that was like because Couture couldn't go for some reason, and I'm not going to read into it too much, but I just want to know because Couture was on the second unit for a little bit. Maybe they'll get a practice in because I would be at least intrigued by what they might want to do. And that would kind of dictate how my stacks go because Hurdle, Mayer, and Dahlin all played together at 5-on-5, and they should be together on the first power play of this stick. So that would be interesting from a DFS perspective because I do like the Sharks here at minus 135. Will it be the best bet of the night? That's kind of where you're getting a little bit, maybe not. Burns is playing a ton of run, 28 minutes, and he's with Ferraro. And that's really the reason here where I'm going to be betting Burns prop for a point is because he's now with a defenseman that gives him all of the avenue to explore offensively. And when Ferraro was out and early on in the return, we didn't quite see it. We are seeing it again. So I'm definitely in on Burns as probably the best value prop on the entire game in general. And I think that this Sharks team should win. The over-under, I really have it right there at 6. I think it's totally fine either way, but the goaltending, I think Kakinen is actually pretty good. So I might just not touch the over-under. I don't think it's the best bet of this game and really focus in on some point props as far as Burns. We'll take a look at Mayer and Hurdle and maybe Dahlin, but the minutes just weren't quite there. He's fine, but I wouldn't get crazy. I think you just kind of stick to the good guys and move on. I think that's probably going to do it. So let's go really quickly. I don't want, like I said, I'm going to do a lot of DFS on the Morning Skate podcast. I give you a little bit of look at a couple stacks I'm looking into, but I'm going to give you a few shot props first. Just pulling up that tool right now. Timo Mayer is 1 over 3.5. I'm definitely going to have Forsberg over 2.5. He's averaging about 7 attempts over his past 10. Definitely going to have his 3.5. It's going to be a little bit tricky. That's where it's going to get to the maybe not. Kempe, again, going to have him. Actually, Athens, had 7 attempts in his first game back, but it's okay. Kempe is over the long run, I think, a better bet. Fiala, I've been jabbing hitting over 2.5. It's missed once, but hit most of the time at Nylander and Norris. I go back to Norris. He's been kind of falling down a little bit because he hadn't hit in a few games. We'll see what he does on Monday night. I kind of liked him okay there as well. I took Batherson though, just because it was a huge plus money. And I don't know, that just kind of seemed off to me because he's seeing so much run as he's continuing to get back in the lineup. But, those are problems I'm keying in on the most. Burns is going to be in consideration zone and maybe Bennett as well. I'll probably at least take a double check on that. And Troy Terry, that's the last one I wanted to mention. There he is. So Troy Terry as well for shots. All those guys go for points. I mean, really, if you're shooting, you're probably going to get points. I really, that's the best way I could ever put it. Sometimes people, get so fixated on the goal scoring, and it's, sometimes players do shoot to pass, and sometimes players, shoot and it gets tipped and it goes in. Like you still get the point then. So you can look at those guys for goals as well. You know what? Why not? I already have it up and I've already gone way too long. So why don't I tell you if there's anyone that stands out, individual expected goals. I mean, after the C actually had over 1 expected goal in his first game back. So maybe give him a look, but doubtful. Stutzel, Terry, both way up the list compared to what their price is going to be. Let's go. Terry might not be that outpriced. Huberdeau also making a bit of an appearance up at the top. So I think if you're looking into that stack with like Giroux and Bennett and stuff, maybe Bennett comes out, but Huberdeau definitely stays in. I'm trying to look if there's anyone surprising. I mean, Nylander, that's why I bet him last time. I think that's, I think that's probably going to do it. There's really not, anyone that's crazy stand out over the past 10 that I might be missing. So with all that out of the way, I'll give you a couple of my favorite bets really quickly. Overall, I'll give you a ton of props right there, but money line bets, number 1, Florida in regulation. Number 2, the over in the Anaheim LA game. Sorry, everything just disappeared when I pulled up the sports book again. Let's go back to it. And with the under in the Rangers game, under 6, Rangers Winnipeg. Those would be the 3 if you need a because there's a lot of games, why not? We're having fun already. Yeah, Sharks minus 135. So Sharks minus 135, I'll add to the 4. And I'll get you out of here. I'm wearing the Ducks jersey, so I don't think they're going to win, but go Ducks. And have a good slate. I will talk to you on this feed on Friday, and I'll have morning skate for tomorrow as well, and for Thursday. And then I'm hopefully going to do a live show on Wednesday. So talk to you on all those avenues, and obviously on Twitter at DJ_Mitchell90. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.